Hello everyone, and welcome to another session of NTalks second edition. Today we look at how a key European regulation, the FTI, is helping to bring digitalization into real transport operations. The transport digitalization is no longer just a future goal, it is becoming a legal requirement. The European Union is making this happen with the FTI regulation, which aims to simplify the compliance and reduce the paperwork across borders. But what exactly is FTI? What does it work in practice? And how will it impact companies, drivers, and authorities alike? To help us understand all this, we joined today by Ieva Markuceviciute, I believe I pronounce more or less, Executive Research Manager at MC Baltics. Ieva has been working closely with the development and implementation of the FTI regulation, and she will share practical insights into how it is moving from policy to reality. So, hello, Ieva. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to start by introduce yourself?
Of course. So my surname, so probably in Portuguese language, it wouldn't be so difficult to share some of the letters. It's Markuceviciute Vinskia. It's difficult
I try a lot.
It's difficult even in Lithuanian language. It's an interesting mix of regional surnames, but your effort was remarkably good. I work as an executive research manager in transport consulting boutique. So what does that mean? It means that we're a small, highly specialized team focusing only on issues related to transport. And my particular field of work is implementing transport innovation and research. And that's how I ended up with eFTI. It was in the beginning research, and now we are well into implementation stage.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ieva. So the floor is yours. We are ready to learn about more about how FTI is changing the way the transport information is exchanging. So let's start.
Okay. I will share today some insights on how exactly the regulation itself was developed and why it has been an interesting initiative in itself, and one of the first ones of such kind. So what is eFTI? eFTI stands for Electronic Freight Transport Information. So for short, we call it EFTI. And it started with a single regulation that requires member states, which is the name for the countries that are in European Union, so I will be calling them member states, requires them to start accepting freight information in digital format. So the regulation mandates that each member state must create certain IT infrastructure that allows their officers to read and receive securely the digital information. But it's a surprisingly difficult process to write technical IT requirements into a document that is a legal act. However, I will try to explain why such things as common regulations are needed if we are trying to establish something that works exact same way in all the 27 countries. So that I will be sharing experiences from two implementation projects, FT4EU and FT4All. Total budget for these projects is a little under 60 million euro, but it's a major effort with, if I remember correctly, in total we have 14 different countries that are working to create their IT infrastructure. And it's quite a journey to create the concepts, to align between the countries and to agree on all the little details. It will soon be almost 10 years since the idea when eFTI was conceived as a concept until the point where it will become reality. So the current deadline is 2027 July, and how the deadlines are set for EU regulations. So depending on what type of regulation it is, after all the member states provide their feedback and they vote to accept it, member states are given a transition period to start implementing it. If it's an easier one, maybe it doesn't require significant preparation, then the minimum period will be somewhere around 2 years. But if it requires major change or implementing new regulations, creating new systems, more time might be given, as well as more resources and support to create such tools. So the ambition is that in every single country, when economic operators, that's how transport companies and companies providing transport services are called in the regulations, that the economic operators will be able to share all the data digitally. And why is that important, and how is this process called? So here you, on the left, you can see the current situation where the officer who is in charge of enforcing transport rules that are applicable in a specific member state when they are stopping a vehicle, depending on what they are controlling and what is their legal responsibility of control, they will ask the driver to provide all the documents they must inspect in order to make sure that whatever goods are transported, they are transported exactly as regulation requires. For example, there are strict rules how dangerous goods are transported, how animals are transported, how waste is transported. Also, very specific rules how drivers are resting and driving to make sure that nobody is tired and they are alert on the road, because the truck weighing a few dozen of tons is very dangerous on the road if the driver is suddenly falling asleep. So at the moment, we have the situation that this business to government or B2G exchange is happening in form of pile of paper documents. Depending on the operation performed, there might be up to 100 of different sheets that officer might have to go through. And of course, it's humanly not possible to read every single document and to comprehend every single error. So it's a bit more of spot checking, that the officer will read something here, something there, and something there, and see if they can identify any issues. But what eFTI is hoping to implement is that this will be greatly simplified, and that driver on their device will be showing a QR code that officer will be able to scan using their own device and to download data sets that are representing that pile of papers that used to be printed and carried together with the freight. So that sounds like a much easier process for both sides. And why is it needed? Like, paper is good enough. It's easy. Everyone knows how to use it. As we call it, it's 100% interoperable, because we know exactly how to deal with paper. Like, if we get some sort of a form, and if you are working with that type of form, you will know exactly how to validate it. Maybe you will look for stamps. Maybe it has a hologram that you can check for validity. Maybe it has a serial number. You know exactly where are the fields, how they should be filled in. So as humans, we learn a lot of things, how paper is supposed to look, how it's supposed to feel. So for us, it's relatively easy to work with it. But when moving to digital data, the whole process changes completely. So why make this difficult shift? Why create expensive systems, and why train everyone working in logistics to do this completely new process? So first of all, inspecting the documents, as I mentioned, just like the sheer quantity of different papers and different forms, is incredibly difficult for the officer to control. Turnover, depending on the competent authority, turnover of staff is up to 30%, which means that within 1 year, 30% of officers will leave the organization and there will be new persons joining. What does it mean that the new officer starts working? It means that they need to learn all the regulation, how to apply it exactly, how to apply it in different situations, what applies nationally, or what are they supposed to control about international trucks or other international vehicles. So it's a huge amount of effort that both competent authority and the officer need to make for them to be fully ready to perform their work. And to make it even more difficult, despite us being in the same EU for already quite some years, there's still surprising amount of variation in the forms that are used internationally. So there are even dedicated websites where the European Commission is posting examples how the same document looks in different countries to help officers validate if this particular one that someone is showing is really the roadworthiness certificate, because there's only a general requirement what needs to be provided in it. But maybe Lithuania wants to make it green. Maybe someone in Greece thinks that it should be blue. Estonians will decide that they want to put a picture on it, and the poor officer ends up having to know at least 27 forms, if not even more, when some documents have a previous version that still needs to be accepted, and then when there's new version. If you ever had to deal with changing your ID or other documents to newer version, you probably encountered such issues. Now imagine that daily and for dozens of different requirements you are supposed to check in your work. Other surprisingly difficult aspect that already mentioned a bit is validating authenticity of different documents and even driving licenses. So some of them are quite standardized, but still there is no digital backup for officers to double check information. For example, the driving licenses, if you lose your right to drive, not in all countries your plastic card that you show to the officers is taken away. In some countries, it's only in national register where you are marked that you can no longer drive. But if you still have the plastic, you go to another country and you are perfectly eligible to drive, which should not be the case. But it is with quite a large number of transport documents. So of course, all sorts of scams happening. For example, Lithuanian customs shared that for them it's quite difficult to validate CMR notes, which is consignment note, or the main document for carriage of goods internationally, that some carriers will have a few different versions, one of which is made specifically for customs to avoid being caught that you are transporting sanctioned goods. With digital data that is validated, such things would be much more difficult to pull off. So these are the challenges on the authority side. And on the economic operator side, it's the same issue with human skills and capacity, that if you are, let's say, driving to a new market and starting to work in Belgium, you will not necessarily know every single rule or every single exception. For example, there is one member state that requires for the driver to have some documentation with emergency contacts of their close person. So knowing such details about just one country in whole EU, it takes a lot of experience or incredibly good training. And filling in those files of documents takes a significant amount of time. And you not only have to fill them in, some of them you have to store for a few years or even closer to 10 years in case you would have to be audited or for tax purposes. And there are some infringements that you might make, well, not out of bad will, but accidentally, and risk fines and loss of your good reputation. And what is one of the biggest challenges at the moment, it's not incidentally that I put a CMR or consignment note in the center, is that it has been to an extent digitalized already in 2009, where a special protocol that is annexed to the CMR convention has been accepted that allows to exchange eCMRs, which is a digital copy of CMR. So it's been already 16 years, and in 2009, and I think it happened between Spain and Portugal, where the first demonstration how eCMR works has been carried out. So 15 years ago. So why are still we talking about paper? Well, the issue is that going digital is not so easy. At the moment, how it works, typically those tools that provide eCMR, they are displayed on tablets or on phones, and they are PDF documents, or maybe it's a PDF with secure signature. But still, the issue is that it's on driver's device, and that digital document is not accepted by authorities as legal proof that you meet all the requirements. Like, to give an example, like practical one from academic background, if I would bring like a digital copy of my diploma and I would claim that, well, it's legit. You see, there's my university logo, there's some serial number, there's my name, the study program exists. Like, it's perfectly good digital copy, but the person checking if I really have this qualification, they would have absolutely no means to make sure that I did not make this PDF just using artificial intelligence 5 minutes ago. And that is what eFTI aims to solve, and to provide a tool how competent authority officers can get data from the economic operators and know that this data is exactly what it says to be, that it has been created in a certified system, and that it has been in a secure way delivered to the officer for them to inspect. What is FT resolving in business to government data exchange? So, like, the first big thing is identification, authentication, and authorization of officers who are logging into their working environment. And what does it stand for? So identification and authentication means that the system makes sure that it's you logging in and that you are exactly the person you are claiming to be. So if I were a police officer, they would validate that, yes, this Markuceviciute really is a police officer and has the right to access this eFTI environment. And what is authorization? According to national regulation, as a police officer, I must comply with, let's say, like 5 laws. But if I'm customs officer, I must check compliance with 3 completely different laws. But what laws are not giving me is permission to check absolutely everything. Like, I have my field of responsibility, and I should be checking exactly what I am mandated by the law. And this is the authorization. So the system recognizes who I am and that I'm allowed to check that particular information. And it's also very important for the economic operators that their data, their digital data, is only reviewed and controlled by the persons who have a right to do so. Other surprisingly difficult, but also implementation in progress aspect is having a register of economic operators working in EU. So how to recognize what is the company? Does it have vehicles registered to it? Does it have some previous violations? Does it have a good reputation? Do their transport manager has good reputation? Does their head of the company has good reputation? So these registers that are shared cross-border are helping to identify that the same company is checked, and if there is important information about it from another country, that this information is shared between countries. Officers already use, depending on country, it's really, really different, country by country and authority by authority. They already use quite a number of different platforms and tools, how they are controlling local compliance and international compliance. So some countries have digitalized their control already to such extent that, for example, people no longer have to carry driving license, or vehicles are automatically scanned for roadworthiness. Maybe you can get completely automatic fine for speeding or not wearing a seatbelt or being on your phone. These particular controls, they are only national. And if we want to go cross-border and implement the same degree of control and exact same rules to all 27 countries, that's where we need tools that provide information that also comes from the other member states. And this comfortable, competent authority working environment is also a very important aspect to reduce the amount of training needed and to simplify the interfaces that the person is looking at every single day. So there was a very funny story from the Lithuanian road police. They have developed an application for their officers that relies on scanning a license plate, and based on that license plate, immediately the application from national registers pulls information if the vehicle is not stolen, if the vehicle has any outstanding fines, if it's insured, if it has roadworthiness. So they get notification on the application background, like if it's green, then likely everything is fine with this vehicle. If it's yellow, the officer needs to inspect certain things. And if it's red, it means that they need to immediately call for backup because there might be a significant violation related to that particular vehicle. But what's surprising about this app, in the first version, they made it that it would have all the functions, that it would allow to pull all the regulations, it would allow to check every single thing about the vehicle, it would allow to type in any recorded offenses, it would let you search everything, but the officers were not very happy about it, and they were complaining that it's too complex. So they kept reducing the amount of buttons and functions until they were left with 4 buttons on the main display with 4 most commonly provided, well, not services, but controls. So checking the parking, there was checking sanctions. I don't remember what the third button is, but it's also something extremely common operation that officers have to do. And the button number 4, it's specific to the officers depending on their responsibilities. But when they made this change of leaving interfaces with 4 buttons, use of the application is now almost 90%. Officers are very happy with it because it's much easier to learn. It's easy to operate. Even if you don't have the perfect eyesight, you likely will not miss one of those 4 buttons that you need to click. Or if it's a cold, rainy, and miserable day, it's much easier than trying to find a tiny little interface. So here is the same situation. How to make data easier to read? Is it possible to implement some validation for the data? For example, already to check for the officer that maybe some fields do not make sense. Let's say the weight of freight is a negative number, which cannot be, or if there are already other errors in the data, so like helping them to do their daily work. And on the side of the economic operator, it's also a bit similar with identification, authentication, and authorization, because those persons who are working with the documents, they are inputting information that concerns legal compliance. However, officers are using, not officers, economic operators are using different systems within their companies to plan and implement transport operations. So these systems are called transport management systems, where deliveries are planned, invoices are handled, freight is consolidated or broken down into smaller parcels. And it's another related system is enterprise resource planning systems, which is, do we have enough employees? Do we have enough trucks? Will we be able to deliver all the deliveries we need to do on 14th of July? So these systems already have a lot of data. However, it's only used for internal purposes of the company. And at the moment, it's not accessible to authorities at all. So the idea is that eFTI will pull some of that data that is necessary for the enforcement through these specially made tools to the officers without requiring the economic operators to create new data that they do not need in their operations. And I think that is one of the main selling points, that we are only digitalizing existing bureaucracy and not creating a new one. And that bureaucracy will be even reduced a bit. Actually, the greatest effort to reduce the initially insane scope of the requirements that the European Commission received from the member states, it came from the translators. Because how this process was done, so the translators had to sit down and translate the definitions from the national languages and those requirements into official working language, which in this case was English. And these translators, they started talking to each other, like, does this mean the same thing in your language, despite it being a different definition? Well, yes, you are actually right. And they were able to reduce the data set by 400 items, which was a good third of the total data set, only by working together and finding out that there might be, due to national language peculiarities, different name for the exact same thing. So sometimes greatest effort to make everything a bit more unified comes from really unexpected places. So there are a few facts about the regulation itself. Other maybe surprising aspect is that I mentioned that it will be mandatory for authorities, but it will not yet be mandatory for the economic operators, which means that when July of 2027 comes, every single officer must have some sort of application that can scan that QR code and retrieve the electronic data. But economic operators will have a transition period to start using the digital data, to adopt it in their processes, to see how best they can start using it. And only in 2029, the discussions and evaluations will begin if it should be made mandatory for the transport companies as well. And why is that so? 97% of the companies working in transport in EU are small and medium enterprises, which means that quite a lot of them only have a few persons, and suddenly having to adopt an IT system and start filling in all the documentation in digital systems, it will neither be easy, neither cheap, neither quick. So there's expectation that market will create very simple tools for these small companies, maybe based on subscription, to the platforms, how you can create in a very easy way CMR for your company to replace it with digital copy. Because at the moment, it's mostly privilege of very large companies that at the moment, if they choose to carry digital version, they can share it with their business partners, but they cannot share it with authorities. So large companies have both things. They have digital version, and at the same time, they have a copy for exact same thing in paper. So that's why we don't see digitalization moving faster, because it's quite inefficient to use both. However, when FTI is implemented, it should give a very straight path to start moving fully towards digital. And digital should bring improved efficiency, that it will be easier and quicker to only check data that needs to be checked at the moment, or maybe automating some of the validation. It will improve data security for both sides. So for the officers who are retrieving authentic data, and for the economic operators, that they can be sure that their sensitive business data is not being leaked left and right, but only delivered to the government using very secure channels. And what is maybe one of the most difficult concepts, but it will be applied more and more in EU systems. It's called data at source, which means that the storage is distributed and it's close to the businesses and to the persons. So in this case, those transport management systems or enterprise resource planning systems, they are storing the original data about the freight and the delivery, and that's where it is staying unless the vehicle is specifically stopped and the data is requested. And only in that scenario, that data and only data regarding that particular operation is retrieved and viewed by the competent authority officer. So that is one of the major concerns for the companies, that if we digitalize data, the government will deploy some sort of AI that will read every single line, and they will find 1,000 violations in how we do business. No, that will not be happening. Still, the controls, they will be using digital tools, but still only what a human can perform, and only when the vehicle is stopped. Maybe that will change in the future, but like the first steps, it's not moving in some dystopian way of surveilling everything. So a few fun facts how the data was transformed from paper into a data set. So what you see on the left is a pretty standard form for the consignment note or for the CMR. And what you see on the right is what is called FT common dataset, or digital equivalence of the data that used to be provided on paper. Because what does it mean to digitalize something like a field for the address? It means that you have to assign it some sort of a unique code that everyone would know, that every single system, regardless of the language, would know that this is this exact data that I need to control, where exactly these goods are being delivered. And this data, it has elements that also need to be defined. Like it must have a country, it must have a city, it must have a street name, it must have an address that might be like building plus apartment number. Maybe it has some letters to specify a building in the complex. And again, it's not so easy to digitalize address. Like in which language do you write the city names? In national language, or do you write them in English? But then English is not necessarily the official language used by all the countries. So again, there's a huge question. how to digitalize this field and from where to take this information that it would be recognizable that this is the same city that everyone is talking about. So this was part of the effort that European Commission legal team had to do, that they had to look into the law. They had to understand what is it exactly that the officer must check. And they had to define very precisely those that controlled data so that it would have all the necessary information when it will be input in the digital system, and that it's exchanged in exact same way across all the 27 member states. So this huge FT data set is common, and I call it like ABC. And for each country, there are FT data subsets that are specific to national legislation, and they will have some combination of data from the common data set. So like if the common data set is ABC, then those national data sets, they resemble, let's say, words where only certain data are extracted and displayed to the officer who is performing control. So that is how that scope of control is only reduced to the data that officer is authorized to see. And this day, FT Common Dataset has 800 different data. Still, it's much better than that 1,200 plus that was there before the translation. However, now it's been, the process is called harmonization. So now it's been cleaned up, and everyone can get all the data that meets national legislation in the same structured way. Why I keep mentioning eCMR? The ambition of FT is to encourage shift from the paper CMR to the digital version of it, and allowing economic operators to submit digital version to the authorities is the first step. So like creating these digital tools that allow to download the data, that allow to view the data is just one part of the job, because digital data, it needs to be recognized also by the law. And reviewing national law is a significant amount of work, again, depending on to what extent government service has been already digitalized. For example, there might be laws that will require that something needs to be provided in 2 copies that have been stamped, which is complete nonsense when we are speaking about digital data. It has no such things as 2 copies or stamped. So in all the laws, they need to be reviewed to make sure that they allow competent authorities to accept digital data and to use it for investigation, use it as evidence. So completely new processes need to be created even within organizations. How do they handle the data? How do they store it? How do they share it securely with other organizations? How they perform investigations? And eFTI, because it's mandatory, it's the law, it kind of forces every single competent authority in EU to adopt these practices. And once they are in place, then the business can fully transition from the paper, because now CMR is used in business-to-business relationship. It's like a very fast and small contract that I'm, as a carrier, am delivering these goods, like this exact list, from this location to that location, and I'm getting paid for this service. And if something happens, like let's say a couple of boxes are lost, then CMR is used to resolve these disputes, that your driver has signed that they have picked up all the goods, and now 2 boxes are missing. So we will not be signing that we received all the goods because 2 boxes are missing. And As it is now, eCMR cannot be used in court as evidence because it's just a made-up digital document without any legal power. But if legislation is changed and digital documents and data are accepted, then digital documents also become evidence, and they can be easily used between organizations to resolve whatever disputes they might have, or also for more positive purposes, such as issuing automatic invoices. And here I think it's the final slide of the presentation is oh no, wait, I have more. So sometimes I surprise myself. So we have the eFTI architecture. Here we can very roughly say that it's representing two countries, but there are some components that every single country must establish. So they are called the FT gates. And in the IT world, it's a component that allows access to data exchange environment. So it uses a specific application communication interface that is called e-delivery. It's also been made by EU. So it's very specific and secure communication protocol that is used between the countries. And within the country, there are components that are used by competent authorities, and these components are identifying, authorizing, and authenticating competent authority officers, and they are also performing functions to retrieve the data and to display the data. And it's the same that economic operators also have their own component that is called FT platform, in which the data is stored at source, and it connects the national FT gate. And how it works, so let's say somewhere in Poland, officer is stopping a Portuguese truck. So they log into their local authority access point and request to receive dataset applicable to road transport control. Polish FT gate will reach out specifically to the Portuguese gate and ask, do you have the dataset? I have this address. It should be in this platform. So the Portuguese FT gate will identify it, will pull the data and retrieve it from the local operator's platform, and will return it back to the Polish officer. So that sounds very easy, and I hope it will work exactly this way in just 2 short years. And 2 years is a surprisingly small amount of time when it comes to national systems, especially the ones that are concerning legal compliance. Although it sounds like a huge amount of time. But at the moment, still, this ecosystem is in piloting stage. And those pilots, they are in laboratory environment, which means that some imaginary data is being exchanged, and it's still quite some way until those platforms and gate have been tested sufficiently so that they can be used for the legal compliance purposes. And that is only one of the first steps when it comes to transport digitalization, because we are getting rid only of those papers that are concerning the freight. But in that pile of documents, we have many more. So a few examples here are the driving license, special license to be driving with dangerous goods. Then certificates that this particular company is eligible to perform transport operations. And then special certificates to drive different types of vehicles, including heavy vehicles, or what is called like Clause 95, that as you have been specifically trained to drive this heavy vehicle. And now there's already work to digitalize these particular data sources, how they are called. So one of the initiatives that we should be seeing as citizens quite soon, so by the end of 2026, each of us should be getting access to national digital wallets for us as citizens. So it's part of European Union digital identity regulation that requires that every single member state creates digital wallet for the citizens where their digital identity can be stored. And this wallet, it will be smarter than storing just ID. So the first ambition is to also put a driver's license on it, and of course to give tools for the officers or for other authorities that have a legal right to access your identity information, to give them means to validate that you are carrying your licenses. So some of the use cases that have been very broadly discussed but not implemented yet, like storage of your diplomas, storage of the other digital certificates that you have. So hopefully all of these will go into the digital wallet, including certification to travel with dangerous goods or certification to drive heavy vehicles. So that is for the drivers and for the citizens, but there's also business wallet that has been announced this year. There has been so far very little information how exactly it will work and whether it will only give rights to sign on behalf of your company, or if it will be more extensive and it will be used to identify, as I mentioned, like registry of companies to make sure that you are this exact company as you're claiming to be. If it will have this digital identity of company, maybe it will store certificates that are specific to the business and will allow to share more efficiently information about this. And the other huge initiative that at the moment is starting, it's called Single European Digital Enforcement Area. And its ambition of it is to create means for sharing all sorts of enforcement data between the member states to make sure that freight operations are performed exactly in the same way and controlled in the same way across the whole EU. For example, controlling such things as cabotage, which means that vehicle is only allowed to drive for a certain time in a foreign country, so controlling such things. So there's quite a lot to come, and we'll see more different systems automatically performing work and making sure that our operations, transport operations, are performed in a secure way and also meeting all the legal requirements. So yeah, we'll see if we like it or if we will start feeling a bit surveilled on every single step. But still, main value of EU is to only observe as much as minimally needed and not to overstep the boundaries. So it's good that we have this mindset in place, and let's be more excited than scared about the future of digital transport. And that would be the very last slide. And if anyone wants to follow some of the digitalization updates, I have LinkedIn, where I post things that people do on LinkedIn, like events, as there are a lot of open events completely for free happening in different transport communities, or interesting materials to read for your own education.
Thank you, Ieva, for such clear and informative presentation. You help us to understand how eFTI is more than just a regulation. It is a new way of thinking about data, compliance, and operational efficiency. Thank you again for showing us what this change really looks like in practice. So let's now open the floor for your questions and comments. Everyone feel free to use the chat or raise your hand if you want to speak. I will give you the mic to speak. So let's take questions or comments, please.
or just questions in chat. Those are also absolutely fine if you don't have access to your microphone at the moment.
Yes, I will start I prepared one question, I believe more than one, but what do you think, Level? How can logistic companies start preparing for eFTI today? What are the most important things do you think they need to assure?
Oh, so that's a very timely question. So in EU, we have a platform that is called Have Your Say. So on that platform, draft regulations are posted where all the citizens, businesses, or member state institutions, they can give feedback if they see any gaps or improvements for that particular draft. So at the moment, what is posted for this public feedback is the implementing act that gives more specific requirements to those business platforms, eFTI platforms, how those are supposed to be implemented and how they must function. So this regulation, once accepted, it will become guidance how exactly businesses must develop these tools and what functions those tools have to perform. And those FT platforms, they will have to be certified by national accreditation bodies or by other accredited bodies. So, for example, as I think ISO for, let's say, management practices is a very common example. A lot of people will know that you must implement certain procedures and prove that you are observing them to be awarded the certificate. So it's a bit similar with FT platforms that they will be tested for security, for the functions that they perform exactly what they need to perform, and they will be given this certificate, and only then they will be able to start participating in the eFTI exchange environment. So now the businesses, those who are providing different platforms related to logistics, they are reading this document and already thinking, how can I update my product to meet these requirements and how I can make my product attractive in the market. So I already saw examples that companies are on top of just providing CMR functionalities, they are creating functionalities to calculate CO2. They are integrating functionalities to exchange more efficiently other operational data with their business partners, like sharing real-time location, or statuses, what exactly is happening with their freight. So now is that stage where everyone is racing to create a compatible tool and to start selling it, because it's business interest mostly, once the time is right.
It's a little like an ecosystem with different issues that we can use to measure of the emissions of and this kind of eFTI issue. Another one is, what are the biggest challenge that the member states, and you speak a little about this, but what are the biggest challenge the member states are facing with the FTI implementation? Because they got different stages of digitalization, and this is a complex environment. So what is your experience, because you have work with, I believe, as well too, in this EU issue. What can you tell us?
Oh, so there are multiple ones, and they depend on size of the country. So, for example, Germany, it has like how many federations they have? I think it's like 30 something. And every single of their lands have their own police. So they are completely separate organizations. So now they not only have to adopt eFTI, they also have to create some sort of system where they would have an authorization list for every single officer in one place instead of having 30 ones. So for them, due to this administrative complexity, they have to resolve a lot of local challenges first,
I believe.
how to unify exchange of data between those 30 authorities, and it's just police officers. And there are more authorities in every single federal government. And for such countries as Lithuania, because we are small, we are very flexible with digitalization. And already we have a digital version of the waybill, which is also like a consignment note for nationally carried goods. We have it for like 7 years now. So for us, the main challenge is how to integrate eFTI functionalities into existing systems without ruining them or making them very slow. Maybe something needs to be updated. Maybe this database no longer works. Something has to be replaced, but we need to be very careful how we replace it. Oh, and now the officers will be complaining that there is another tab in their interface. So that is part of the challenges for other member states. It's making additional decisions, how exactly, who will be responsible for this new system, who will be maintaining and running it. So yeah, the challenges are quite colorful.
Huge challenge, yeah. We have a question for Gilvan. It is, in practical terms, what should be the procedure for independent drivers to just adjust the records in this system?
So it depends if these drivers are working as their own little entity with their own truck, or if they are like contract drivers, and if they do business internationally. Because if that driver is only working within their own country, eFTI will not be a major concern for them. It's because at the moment it's focused for international data exchange. However, if they will want to operate with the international markets, if eFTI is made mandatory, they would have to subscribe to eFTI platform that would give them an option to fill in these electronic CMRs. So there are already discussions from some of the countries that they might create nationally provided tools for the businesses, like as an alternative to the commercial tools, just to reduce possible costs and to support the businesses. So at the moment, it's still a bit of a discussion, but it's very likely that in the market, we will see a lot of different solutions, how these micro enterprises, how they can get access to creating this digital information. However, the paper, it will not go away anytime soon, as CMR convention is not only applicable to EU, it's an international one. And until the convention itself is changed, that it moves from paper to digital, according to the convention, it will be perfectly legal to drive with paper. So there's good period until everyone will be forced to go digital. And I think in the next few years, we will see a huge variety of products at all price points popping up. And that should also help these tiny companies.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I don't know if someone has any question more. This is a great day to go to the beach. I believe the guys don't come and gonna wait to see the video after. If I don't have more, so thank you all for being with us and for the questions that Gilvan participates. And thank you once again, Leva, for helping us to move from regulation and to real world application. This is not going to be easy, as we see, but I believe we are enforcing now in the next years, or I believe there is a task force to implementing this more fast in the few years. So I will see you in the next NTalks sessions. We are continuing to explore innovation and transformation. Wait, I have one last. I was It was, thank you for the I was sent away. Thank you. So I will see you in the next NTalks sessions where we continue to explore this innovation and transformation in the port and transport system. So Leva, thank you very much again. I hope you see you soon in another session.
My pleasure. And send some of that nice Portuguese weather in this northern direction.
I will send you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.